Educational GMAT. Your partner in your GMAT journey.
Let's start doing this. Notice this is typically how the format of a two-part analysis is. So notice this is for, this is against, and these are the statements. So based on these statements, you identify one option here, the other option here. So these are radio buttons, and obviously you have to like click on these. All right. Okay. Now let's start this again. As we've been discussing for all data insights, your first thing would be to understand the argument. Only then the question. Okay. Archaeologists excavating. So are you clear with the question now? Are you clear with the question statement? Select the proposition that if true, these are the various propositions, correct? So select the proposition that if true would make the strongest evidence for the hypothesis that the room had a residential function. What room are you talking about? This room. That the room had a residential function, and select the proposition that, if true, would provide the strongest evidence against the hypothesis. What hypothesis are we talking about? That the room had a residential function. So, okay, so this is another thing. Make only two selections, one for each column. So I think it should be evident that you cannot say these two are correct. No, there will only be one correct option here. There only be one correct option here. All right. So first of all, what are we looking at? The proposition that, if true, would provide the strongest evidence for the hypothesis that the room had a residential function. So in other words, which of the following proves that the room that they found out here had a residential function? Yes, guys. Residential, right? So residential means staying, right? People used to live there. As opposed to residential, obviously there can be other types of rooms. So what do you guys think is the answer here? For which of these, if true, right? Basically, this is what it says, right? Which of the following, if true, all of these are supposed to be true, right? So basically, which of the following proves that the room that they've found is a residential room? Correct. So you could
E.
absolutely take that. Yes, yes, very nice. So, all right. So Edward is the answer. Red and white striped pottery, which by the way they have found, right? White and red striped pottery, almost exclusively used for personal food storage. Personal. So obviously then it makes sense that if this is true, then there is a strong reason to believe that this room was used for residential purposes, right? All right. Now let's come to this one. Which of the following, if true, would prove that or would strongly lend a reason to believe that this room was not used for residential function?
Beta.
David. All right. Well, Baker is the right answer. So basically, why is Baker the right answer? Nearly all Chi-Xua residential buildings. Notice residential buildings had multiple rooms, while this has only a single room, Weber. Hmm. Okay, so what it's basically saying is, Vaibhav, that notice which of these statements proves or goes against the hypothesis. And what is the hypothesis, by the way? That the room had a residential function. Now, notice if this is true, that nearly all Chi-Xua residential buildings had multiple rooms. If this is true, then clearly this gives us a reason to believe against the hypothesis that the room had a residential function. Hmm. Go ahead, go ahead. So what they are saying is, Vaibhav, that in Chi-Xua, uh, if a building was used for residential purposes, generally people had multiple rooms. Agreed? So if I want to use a building, let's say I'm from the Chi-Xua era, and if I want to live, right, residential for a residential purpose, if I'm looking for a building, tell me, will I look for a building with one room or multiple rooms? Multiple rooms, correct? While they found a building that has only one room. So clearly it means that it was perhaps not being used for residential purposes. Because if it was being used for residential purposes, then apparently people in that era preferred buildings with multiple rooms.